Right, Mark Rogers TV back with you as we continue to track Big Ten Media Days from Chicago. We talk Nebraska now with Bo Pelini at the podium, and of course we bring in Brian Towle of Corn Nation to talk about Bo's comments. And Brian, as we bring you in here, first, before we break it down to the football talk, the personnel talk, this cat situation. Now, the first time I saw the cat was in Bo's arms leading out of the tunnel at the spring game, but there's more to it than that. Where did this start?
Yeah, roughly I'd say about a year and a half ago, there was a kind of a Tumblr site that kept matching Bo Pelini's face to cat pictures. I mean, anything you find on the internet to Olin Mills rejects, those sites and everything, and everybody kept putting Bo Pelini's face on there through Photoshop, and kind of became a thing, and everybody thought it was funny, and Bo Pelini, the Twitter sensation, kind of took over and put the picture on, and just kind of going, and kind of calmed down a little bit. And first quarter of the national championship game this year between Florida State and Auburn, Bo Pelini tweets out something that says, "Hey, I want my cat back," and all of a sudden the internet just goes boom, and ever since then, Bo's kind of embraced that whole little thing. There was a picture of him tweeted out by John Papacheese, Nebraska's defensive coordinator. Bo was going on a recruiting trip and happened to have a cat carrier. And then the Nebraska Twitter account tweeted a picture of a cat on Bo's desk. And then finally, what you saw at the spring game where Bo was carrying the cat out. And I guess the cat got a little scared.
So, Brian, you're telling me basically that if I get a cat and I put it on my shoulder or put it on a stand behind me or something, maybe somebody's going to start watching these lousy videos I produce.
No, you do well, but, I mean, if you have allergies, yeah, that's going to be an issue, but nobody wants to watch anybody sneeze, uncontrollably. But, yeah, it's weird, man. It's good. It's weird. It's just, something that – and I think what's helped with that is, he sees – when Bo first came, he kind of disvalued social media. Wouldn't let players tweet. What's the point of it? Nothing can go right. And all of a sudden, he's realized now through that and seeing what happened to Tim Miles and everything like that, it's a pretty nice tool, and it helps with your image and such, and that's good for Bo. That's something that he's clicked on a little bit, and it's helped him out a lot.
Yeah, and that kind of brings us to our next topic, which is somewhat related. When we talked about Bo Pelini's public perception this time last year, it was pretty much negative, at least outside the Nebraska camp. I don't know what it was inside Nebraska, but from a national perspective, all the things that were being talked about or the missteps that he was taking when he put his foot in his mouth a number of times, that sort of thing. Do you think Bo is intentionally trying to put his best foot forward and seem a little softer, or is this just, hey, he's getting a little bit more comfortable in the Big Ten, a little bit more comfortable as a head coach, and we're starting to learn about his personality?
I don't know if it's either one. The last 3 to 4 years, Bo Pelini's had something that people have noticed. I mean, really, he's had it ever since he's become head coach of Nebraska. The Texas A&M debacle where him and Carl got yelled at somebody on the field after the 9-6 loss. Numerous times to home where he's been caught screaming at TV. Last year, after the Iowa game where he basically swatted an official and then dared his AD to fire him on the press conference. Every fall you hear Bo's changed, Bo's relaxed, Bo's a different guy, he's getting it, and then every winter something happens to where, he's still fired up. And coaching with fire is one thing. I mean, you want to be a guy that's intense, but there's always a camera on him. And fair or unfair, there's always a camera on him, and when something happens that is seen negative, that's when it hurts him, and it kind of becomes a recycling thing. Everybody, he's getting better at recruiting, he's getting better, he's relaxed, he's getting into his job more. He's had 6 years to get used to his job. It's hard to see him getting much more comfortable unless he wins like 2 national championships, and is poised to win a third right in a row. So it's nice to see, but when you see it every summer, the first time you're like, yeah, the fourth one you're like, okay. So we've seen it before. It really depends. It's really dependent on what's going to happen in the season. Whether it's true or not. So.
Yeah, he definitely made the point today that he wants people to know that he's got another side, that he's laid back at home, he's a family guy, and he likes to have a good time, and he's not just the guy that goes through the tirades on the sideline and really attacks his players and goes after people and refs and the whole deal. All right, let's talk some football here, Brian. He talked about recruiting. He's come out with some statements in the past in regards to his thoughts about National Signing Day. He would love it to cease, and for college football programs to be able to sign players whenever they want. He's sick of flipping. We see this constantly. Has he specifically gotten burned by a lot of flips? Is that why he's taking this stance?
Nebraska in the last few years has gotten flipped by a lot of people. Last year, right at the national signing deadline, this kid from named Blake McLean committed to Nebraska 2 days later on National Signing Day. He flipped to South Carolina. Andres Pete, the great offensive tackle at Stanford. Nebraska was the leader for the longest time on National Signing Day. He pulled out a Stanford Cardinal hat, and a lot of people, myself included, were shocked. The problem with Bo Pelini's comments in that sign the kid right away. Number one, Nebraska doesn't do great at recruiting. People try to make a lot of built-in excuses. I'm a guy who covers it 24/7, 365. It's hard to see a lot of those excuses help out. He says sign them immediately. Well, there's a problem with that. Number one, you're going to get kids to flip no matter if you go to Alabama, if you go to Nebraska, if you go to Washington, if you go to San Jose State. Kids are going to flip. That's just the way it is. You're asking a 17, 18-year-old kid who's making an emotional decision with their parents, with handlers, quote-unquote, uncles, whatever, head high school coaches. You're asking them to make that decision. So kids are going to feel one way one time, one way another time. Number two, Bo Pelini wants an immediate national signing moment so that when the kid commits, he can sign. That's bad for Bo Pelini because Bo Pelini takes a lot of time at the end of the year between January and February with kids that haven't gotten the respect, have flown quote unquote under the radar, kids that could have committed to bigger schools. Schools, it's hard to say now that schools don't do their homework when it comes to recruiting. It's really hard to say that. You have Scout, you have Rivals, you have 24/7, you have ESPN, you have a lot of guys on the inside. Kids can lie about offers. Yeah, I agree with that. But lying about offer doesn't help you in the future, especially when it comes to February. If you're lying about offers in July, come January, you're not going to have none. You're going to be a kid in the MAC or going to directional Louisiana or whatever. Nebraska's kind of needed those kids that fly under the radar because, Nebraska's been a school that is low 20s, mid 30s the last 3 to 4 years. Well, if kids are now unavailable to where, let's say the top 250, let's say the top 247 on 247.com is unavailable because let's say 220 kids by January have signed LOIs, you're hoping that 4 or 5 of those are in Nebraska. If maybe one will actually be Nebraska, okay? The schools that say, quote unquote, we're landlocked, yeah, you are. Well, guess what? Illinois does a great job recruiting still. It doesn't mean they're good. It means they're 2-10, but they get players to show up. Northwestern's done pretty good recruiting. They have a big cold lake, and it's 50-mile-an-hour wind near Chicago every day. Ohio State has just wrecked it just this weekend with Friday Night Lights. They're all landlocked last time I checked. There's no special Florida stop sign on that. So I only buy so many excuses, especially since I cover it all the time. Bo's had an issue where Bo goes really hard from beginning of June till the end of July when the season starts. And then start of August to October, you really don't do a whole heck of a lot. Late October to mid-November does some. Bowl season does do a lot. After bowl season is National Signing Day, he does a lot. Okay, it's pretty sporadic. Nebraska started off with one of the top 10 recruiting classes in America. They were number 2 behind Penn State in 24/7. And right now they've gone down to where they're half size in the Big Ten and in the mid-30s. Problem with Nebraska is they only got 15 kids, 16 kids they can sign unless they have attrition this year, which more than likely is not going to happen unless something else happens because they don't have that many spots. So, I've always said in a perfect world, you fill up before August, then you don't have to worry about it. in Bo Pelini's case, he needs to have the later time, and he has the kids that he can see and develop and have interest. Once it would work out if Bo Pelini was getting interest early and getting the kid to sign early before all the big schools got him. That's one thing. If that happened, and it happens to a few kids, not a lot, that's one thing. Bo Pelini's waiting until all these kids are just discovered and flying under the radar and getting kids that aren't being seen. That's a completely different thing. Bo Pelini probably he has a great point. Make the kid be able to commit right there and sign the LOI, but at the same time, it'll hurt him. It won't help him as much as he thinks it is. It'll make it easier. It'll give you a lot less headache, a lot less drama. There won't be 5 hats on a table. We're trying to figure out which is the flattest bill, so he'll take it. And ESPN will have nothing to do on that Wednesday. But at the same time, you got to be able to close the deal immediately. Nebraska's okay with that, but not at a level where they've had mid-20s and mid-30s recruiting rankings, and they've been 9-4 and out of the rankings the last 2-3 years. There's a correlation. Alabama is top 5. Alabama's top 5. Clemson has had great crosses, and they got real good last year. So, is recruiting all of it? No. I mean, look at Mark D'Antonio at Michigan State. He doesn't recruit great. Brady Hoke has run circles around him. Urban Meyer's run circles around him. Mark D'Antonio won a Rose Bowl when Urban Meyer was getting Clemsoned by Clemson. And what was Brady Hoke doing besides eating Buffalo Wild Wings? So it's all relative. I mean, you got to develop it, but to get the kids in, you have to be able to do what you're doing. And you'll probably talk about more. Adjusting. He talks about adjusting things. As he's doing during the season. Recruiting can be part of it because he's only got 70 spots left to fill this year. And yeah, I'm going a little long-winded. I'm sorry, but it's just ironic how Bo wants one thing to do, and it's actually a good idea. But then he's going to have to reform some of the stuff he does, and I'm kind of wondering how and what efficiency he's going to have doing that. So.
Okay, Brian, let's look at this team coming up this fall. Bo made a couple references to if these kids learn something, if they're disciplined on the field, if they execute, he thinks that they've got the pieces in place to win a division championship. Randy Gregory was brought up. Of course, he's a star in the making. Bo kind of alluded, it depends if you want to read between the lines or not. It kind of sounded to me as though he thinks Randy Gregory's a good kid. He's basically going to do what he's told, but he has to be told that he needs to be an every down player, and he needs to play the run as well as the pass. Your take on Gregory's play last year, and if that's a fair knock?
I think it is. Two things really happened with Randy Gregory. One, he has to gain weight. He's really thin, especially if he's going to be one of the top 3 picks in the NFL draft. He has to gain probably 20, 30 pounds. I've always made the joke that, some of the D tackles that Nebraska had were on the Chipotle plan, so I don't see why we can't get on the Chipotle plan for Randy Gregory. Double meat burrito, extra guac is not going to hurt him. Second thing he needs to have happen this year, he needs to have, especially the other rush defensive end spot in Nebraska, develop very well. Last year he had Avery Moss and Greg McMullen, who did well at times. Moss did really well, but right now Moss is off the team for a year for doing some dumb stuff in Lincoln. He can't even go on the campus till January 1st. They have a JUCO kid named Joe Keels coming in at the other defensive tackle. Gregory's got to get a little, the weight's got to help him a little better get on the rushing defense. He doesn't have a lot of patience sometimes. It's sometimes Randy is go see the quarterback, go get the quarterback, which isn't a bad thing. That's how Eric Martin got through Nebraska football, went to the New Orleans Saints. But at the same time, if you're talking about a top 3 NFL draft pick, especially on defense, like a Ndamukong Suh, like a Jadeveon Clowney, sorry, it's Monday, you got to be a complete player. You got to be able to play the rush. You got to be able to play the pass. There's a lot of guys that can just rush off the end against the left tackle. That's easy, in the whole grand scheme of things. It's, can you play against stunts? Can you play against double teams? Can you play tight end, running back, chips? Randy's done well on that, but to have the numbers that he's going to need, he's going to have to be able to show that not only he can gain weight and play the run better, but somebody else in that line's going to have to step up. D tackles Kevin Maurice, Vincent Valentine. He's got to take some of that weight off of him. He can only do so much if he has triple team. If he can't really get the help, he's not going to have that well numbers this year. And and it's going to have to be something where the tape's going to have to prove whether or not he's going to be able to get that top 5 pick like everybody thought he's going to be. I mean, I remember the first mock draft I saw last year, Randy Gregory goes 1. So, there's a lot to ride there, money-wise, prestige-wise for Nebraska. And think about it. Sue went number 1. You got a great guy in Jared Crick at Houston. You got a guy like Zach Potter. And you're going to have somebody like Randy Gregory, and Randy Gregory's going to play the league. It's just a matter of where and how well he's going to have it. So it's definitely up to him. He needs a little help from his teammates, but it's definitely up to him to get heavier and get a little more patience on run defense so that, he's just not known as a third down specialist, which isn't a bad thing, but it's not going to get you that first round paycheck.
Okay, Brian, the quarterback position. Unfortunately, we were robbed of seeing Taylor Martinez wrap up a very historic, prolific career would be the better term, at Nebraska. I think most of us wanted to see him, with his improved passing skills, get a full senior season, but that didn't happen. So Tommy Armstrong got some valuable playing time, so that's a blessing in disguise. You got Johnny Stanton, and Bo also throws Ryker Fife into the mix. So your thoughts about the pluses and minuses of each guy, what you saw out of Armstrong last year, if that makes you hopeful at all, or is there anything to get excited about here?
This is going to be an interesting thing, and it really should make people mad at Nebraska. First off, Tommy Armstrong is going to be the starter. For those that don't know, in high school he led San Antonio Cebola Steel to 2 Texas 5A championship games, won one, didn't lose a game, lost 1 game in 2 years. That was the last game he played in high school. Knows how to win. If you can win in Texas, you can win anywhere, especially in high school. Has a little bit of what I call a fluffy arm. Can't throw a bullet. He can throw the ball down the field, but it just gets some air. His best pass all year literally was the 99-yard bomb to Anonwa, and that was typical Tommy. Throw it up, let your guy make a catch. Doesn't lack the zip on the ball that I think a lot of people want. Taylor, for everything you hate about Taylor, he can get the ball from A to B in a pretty decent spot. It may be tumbling over itself, look like a knuckleball punt, but it's going to get there. Stanton is a lot more polished. He was a lead 11 quarterback. Lost pretty much the entire senior season to ACL tear. Redshirted last year at Nebraska because of the ACL tear. He was okay in spring ball. He wasn't really great. You can kind of see he was a little bit better of a passer than Armstrong happened to be, but at the same time, Armstrong commanded the offense a little more and seemed to run the ball a little better. Ryker Fife is the wild card here. Ryker Fife is a walk-on, and everybody kind of got surprised last year when they mentioned the name, Ryker Fife being at par or even above a little bit of Johnny Stanton. And we're like, well, Johnny Stanton was a lead 11 quarterback in California, did really well. He's a sophomore. Ryker Fife's a sophomore walk-on from Grand Island, Nebraska, Grand Island High School. Threw 1 pass last year for 5 yards. He had a 3-yard run. That's all he did last year, and all of a sudden now he's going to be in the quarterback mix with Tommy Armstrong and Johnny Stanton. And if you told me Ryker Fife was going to be in the mix, I would laughed and walked away, but it's the way it is right now. And the reason I say it should upset Nebraskans is Nebraska doesn't really have a true quarterback coach. Hasn't had one in a long time. Offense coordinator Tim Beck is considered the quarterback coach, but he's so busy trying to mesh his offense together that he really doesn't have the time. 2 years, Taylor Martinez went to go see George Jolly, the gentleman, can't remember his name, he was in California, who happens to be Stanton's coach. Armstrong this year got some coaching from Brett Favre. Don't know who Ryker went to, maybe his dad, I don't know. It's an open case at Nebraska for quarterback, and this is the first time in 4 years that's happened. It's kind of scaring people a lot because, people like Tommy. People see that Tommy win, and Tommy does win. But at the same time, Tommy, throws through 52%. Tommy threw some interceptions. That was the take back. Sometimes Tommy can't get the ball from A to B fast enough. Stanton's probably pretty good, but Johnny's never been in the line of fire of a D1 football game in the Big Ten. So who knows how good he's going to be? Tommy's probably going to get the start when it comes to the opener, but then after that, who knows? It could be Johnny's gig once Miami comes to town in the 4th game of the year. It could be Johnny's gig once he goes to Fresno State in the 3rd game of the year, go play a 9 o'clock game, So Ryker could be there, and to be honest, Tommy's been hurt. Johnny's been hurt. The incoming Zach Darlington wasn't touched in spring ball. He rolled early, but he didn't touch spring ball because he had pretty decent concussion issues. Having that many guys trying to be able to be healthy and go is not a bad thing. I mean, good to have depth anywhere, but there's Nebraska's receiving core really lacked last year. Kenny Bell caught 53 balls last year, which is 2 more than he caught in his sophomore year. But he only averaged 7 yards a catch, and he averaged over 11 during his sophomore season. That matters a lot. Adele looked like a pretty good receiver. Bell was a really good receiver. The tight ends are coming along, but at the same time, it's and you can talk about it later. It's your Abdullah that makes everything in the offense look good. The quarterback has to step up because the quarterback doesn't step up. Games like Iowa, the Iowa loss happened. Games like the Michigan State loss where 4 turnovers before halftime happened. Last year we went into the season where we thought the offense was going to be high volume octane with Martinez and Abdullah, and it sputtered across the sputtered across the field like a 79 Pinto, against Georgia. It did enough, but it was amazing. So definitely, I think Armstrong has the lead here, and I think he's definitely going to start the season. By conference time, it's anybody's game. It could be Fife, could be Stanton, it could be still Armstrong, it could be the old quarterback high committee, which would drive people nuts. But that's just you need to find somebody that will just take control of it.
So here's my two-parter, Brian. And related to the quarterback position, I got a less of a feel for this than the Wisconsin situation, but I'll relate it to it. Stave's the guy with the experience. He's won a lot of big games, thrown too many picks. He's immobile. Then you got McAvoy, who can run around. He's an athlete. He's got speed. He knows when to run. Yeah, they played him at safety last year. The guy's an athlete, but no D1 experience at that level. Gary Anderson, Wisconsin's head coach, as you well know, comes from Utah State. Chucky Keaton, he wants to run the style of offense where the quarterback can take off. He's got no Jared Aberderis. He's got no outside threats that are proven producers. So he may have to go with the running quarterback, and he probably wants to because that's what he's comfortable with, even though Stave's got the experience. So it's kind of a catch-22. But I think he wants McAvoy to be the guy. Do you get a feel for Bo wanting one of these two guys to step up and be the guy?
I don't know if I get a feeling for either guy, but my worry is, Johnny's pretty young. Tommy's still pretty young. Tommy could come back to Texas and redshirt, and he wouldn't be able to redshirt. He'd have 2 years to play too. Tommy wants to stay and be the man. Stan's already redshirted. He could redshirt again and go back to California somewhere and have 3 years to play too. I think Bo just wants some to know who it's going to be. He took a lot of pressure off of Taylor by saying you're going to be the man, hell or high water. To be fair, only pulled him ever one game. It's like your situation, what you're talking about. Tim Beck wants to run an offense that the quarterback is a threat. The more that Stanton can prove he's a threat with his feet, the more Stanton has a chance. But at the same time, Tommy has that experience in the offense that Tim Beck came up, and Tim Beck's the guy that mashed both the Texas high school zone read with Mark Mangino's throwing offense. They're looking for the guy that just wants to be the man to step up and lead. And personally, if they win, and the thing that separates Tommy's won. Tommy has gone to the biggest stages in high school ball and won. I'm not saying Johnny hasn't, but in the whole grand scheme of things, Johnny lost his senior year. Who knows how good Johnny could have been and what we would have seen, like we saw from Tommy. Tommy's gone to Cowboy Stadium and slayed the dragon once already. So it's not a big deal to be in front of a big crowd to Tommy. But at the same time, and it may not answer your question, I'm sorry, but it's whoever. But that's the thing about this. Bo's just throwing it out and say, hey, somebody take the reign. I'll give it to whoever wants it, but somebody's got to want it. Tommy's got the experience, granted, not that much, but he's got the experience. Johnny has had the year in the offense just as long as Tommy. He's where Tommy was last year at the beginning of the year, and we never thought we'd see Tommy because of Taylor. It's a good thing to have Tommy with experience, but at the same time, You know, last year it was, well, it's Taylor unless something gets hurt. Oops. Now it's someone's got to take it and one and take it. You know, and there's nobody. You know, Darlington may come in and get it. Ryker could definitely come in and get it. There's really, nobody coming in this recruiting class right now to pressure him. So guess what? It's those two or three or hell or high water. So yeah, the style of the offense doesn't matter. It still goes through Amir, still goes through Kenny Bell and Jordan Westerkamp, to a fault, and Jamal Turner. But still, you got to have the guy that doesn't make the mistakes. Nebraska's gone 26 straight games with a turnover. Give me the guy that can not give me the limited turnovers. Give me the guy that can not put the ball on the ground, not put the ball in the other team's hands. If that's Stanton, so be it. If it's Armstrong, so be it. Just somebody do it.
Okay, good stuff from Brian Towle, Corn Nation on the SB Nation platform. Hey, Brian, we'll shut this thing down. We'll come back. We'll talk a little summer camp with the Huskers going to the practice field in here about a week. So we'll be right back.
All right.